Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today and welcome to Hybrid Working, Preparing for the New Normal. First of all, I'd like to let you know that we are recording this webinar and we'll make it available to you after today. It'll be available on our website probably later on this afternoon. I'd like to introduce myself first. I'm Gordon Christie, Managing Director from IT Hotdesk. I started IT Hotdesk nearly 11 years ago, and today I direct a team of over 15 technical professionals delivering varied IT services to our customer base, which is located all over Scotland. At IT Hotdesk, we believe in a strong defence, proactive detection, and enhanced cybersecurity skills are essential in every business. So security is baked into our solutions and not bolted on as an afterthought. This is critical to ensuring security does not get in the way of productivity, and finding that balance between usability and security is critical as we look to the new normal of hybrid working. Today, we have two subject matter experts on the webinar. The first I would like to introduce is Chris Whitley from Nuvius. Chris, can you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, Chris from Nuvius. I've been in the industry for 20 years now. My job, and I would also say my hobby, is social engineering, and hopefully today I'm going to show you some playful things about social engineering.
Thanks, Chris. I'd also like to introduce AJ. AJ leads up our IT Hotdesk cybersecurity division here. AJ, can you give us a quick intro?
Yep, thanks, Gordon. Hi, I'm AJ, cybersecurity architect at IT Hotdesk, where my passion is protecting our customers from cyber threats. My background is in computer science, and I've been consulting businesses on infrastructure and security since 2009. Also, I've noticed we've got some clients connected today, so welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, AJ. And yes, thanks for everyone that has joined today. Great to see all the different types of businesses that are connected, including some of our customers, so that's great. During the webinar, if you've got any questions, then I'm going to ask you just to post them in the Q&A section on the application Teams, and we'll try and get these answered towards the end of the webinar. If we don't answer all your questions, then we'll obviously reach out after. Okay, so let's get started, AJ.
Yep, so the impact of COVID-19 on businesses has led to an increase in anywhere operations where people have been forced to move out of their office and work from home. Although working from home is likely to be the norm for some, in 2021 and beyond, we will see an increase in hybrid working, where people will split their time between office and home working. This brings new challenges for businesses as they look to implement collaborative systems which should be intuitive for employees whilst remaining cyber resilient. In this webinar, we will discuss the best practices and strategies for businesses looking to adapt to the new normal whilst maintaining a strong cybersecurity posture. We will look at security awareness training, cloud security, device management, home security, and bringing it all together with complexity management. Firstly, let's get into security awareness training. SAT is a fully customized training program designed to identify knowledge gaps that your colleagues have around cyber threats, then educate them to avoid becoming the victim. This empowers all employees at every level of the business to ensure that they have the skills required to identify an attack. Training your workforce in cybersecurity is more important than ever when they are not sitting in the office. The reason I say that is when remote working, they are not as protected as when they are in the office behind the company firewall. And also, many feel isolated, not being able to discuss potential security issues and thus more likely to make mistakes. I'm now going to hand over to Chris from Nuvius, where he will discuss more about the dangers workers face when hybrid working and how security awareness training and phishing simulation tests can help them keep secure. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, AJ. So today what we'd like to do is speak to you about Joe. Joe is the average employee within your organisation. And we want to talk today a little bit how to, just going to talk about some of my observations, what we've been doing in the market lately, or sorry, what we've been sending emails out and the like as well. So this is a common email that's been going out at the moment. We've seen an 8,000% increase in this email going out, which is an invite to a webinar, just like you've received today from there. And although I've been a bit playful with this and wrote, I want access to your system, you know, who's required as many as possible, we've seen a really mass increase in this email going out. I think I saw some stats. It depends who you read. We can all throw stats at things, but some is 8,000%, someone's 1,000%. But this email is more and more common in your inbox now. There's a lot of different types of different products out there. There's a lot of markets. We've got Zoom, Microsoft Teams, which is what we're using today, BlueJeans, RingCentral, Google Hangouts, WebEx meetings from there. And they've been well documented in the press, near enough every single one. You may have heard stories from Zoom bombing, people joining calls, to conference calls just being hacked using Android, and hacking video conferencing platforms. Is it the next big thing? And social engineers have been taking advantage of this. We've seen a mass increase in the invite webinars going out as phishing attacks from there. So how it would generally work is we'd send out an email, send out a message, please join this webinar. We've had some great examples of, can you just join this webinar for 15 minutes? We've seen some very complex ones, we've seen some very basic ones. Here is a screen from Zoom, and we've used the Know Before one here. But as you can see, near 9 out of 10 times when you join a webinar, you're required to download a document of some form, a program of some form, which needs to execute and run. And generally you can do this without administration. It's very easy to change that code or inject something into there from there. And as AJ mentioned earlier, we have remote users. If you've already got a VPN, you've already been approved, and then hopefully from executing what I've just asked you to in my payload there, I'm straight in, I can get straight back to the server farm if possible from there. Or it could be the other way around. It could be that we use web applications. I'm not even going through the firewall. Most of you are into have done the digital transformation. You're probably accessing Salesforce or something, a cloud-based application, not necessarily going through the firewall there. Hopefully what we've just done is just, if we did click on that and you did take my payload and it was able to execute, we can just harvest some information and harvest around the business as well. We can move between the different server farms in there, and what we could gather a whole host of data from that. And it was just from a simple webinar invite, and please download this. Yes, and it's been done, executed from there. We'll talk about some observations in the market as well. Market on Facebook, really. So here we've got Facebook. It was just, I was scrolling through Facebook about a year ago, and I saw this. Boris Johnson, I've shared my first digital cabinet. March, June, July, August last year, we had a whole host of people posting these video links, posting these links, and we've just done this webinar online. We fully moved to working from home in a proud way. Nothing unprofessional there. When we take a look at what was posted here, we got a Zoom meeting ID, and it was a reoccurring webinar, and people did, it was well documented in the press afterwards, people joined this webinar the day after, the second day, the third day from that. From the first one, we got everyone's pictures there, everyone who it is, the meeting ID at the top, and at the bottom right there, who is this iPhone user? Did anyone actually know who this was? Was the lobby set up in place? I think Zoom didn't have a lobby at that time. I believe it was much later they added it after quite a few people started joining these meetings. So March last year, I'm really under the impression this did not exist at that time. So who is that user? Who let that person in to this? Who allowed them to connect from there? So today, our working lives are much different from we first thought a few years back, and it's starting to look like a 70s TV program. Correct me if I'm wrong, it could be a 60s. I do apologize for that. Just like to take your attention to the bottom right hand side, and this is my colleague Mike, and myself and Mike have been having a lot of fun recently highlighting how we can join conference calls, and we've been dressing up for this. I didn't want to show you myself dressed up and embarrass myself on this, so I've just used a picture of Mike there. And that was one of his tame fancy dress outfits with just his goggles on. But we've had some fun. We've sent out 200. Our best one so far is one company. We sent 200 invites out, and it was just, let's all have a 15-minute catch up. For nobody in particular, we had over 150 people join, and it took over 15 minutes before anybody to realise why they were actually on the call. What are they doing there? And we've also been gathering quite a bit of information in the background there as well. So we have been looking at picking up what's in the background of this of the users. We have managed to keep a couple of Wi-Fi codes. He's also been trying to just gather names. We've been trying to gather intelligence about that business from there. So we've been trying to gather who has got what job title if possible. Some have their job title posted. We can gather email addresses by who's joined. We can see who's joined. We generally get a list of everyone who's joined and what their email addresses are as well. Mike did do together. We looked at social engineering, taking their pictures and doing the facial recognition in Google and seeing if we could find further images to hopefully give us a link to Facebook or LinkedIn from there. But we did have their email address, which is going to be a bit step too far from that. So let me just give you some tips so that Mike doesn't intervene immediately into any of these meetings that you're about to join. Always encourage your employees to send the invites out themselves. Use your technology where possible. If you are unsure, have your employees check with the sender of that link. You know, is this it? Phone them up. Is this a genuine link that you've sent out? Is it a genuine meeting? And just ask that question. Some different depends on which you're joining, and as you're joining as a guest or you have the program installed, you may get asked to download a bit of software. I would recommend you just always check that in the bottom left hand side there, that it is always the company who they say they are, and it makes sense. It looks correct. It's not foolproof, but it's a good start from there. A few months ago, I was logging on to NatWest Bank, and they were giving out a fraud warning. And I took a little look into this a little bit further. It wasn't just NatWest; they were just the first one to post that. But there was a big scam going around, and I'm sure some of you on this conference have seen this email come through from the TV license asking you to pay £12. So many people paid money out of their bank accounts that they could not keep up with the incoming calls. The banks couldn't, and actually felt the need to post this on their front page from that. And that is just how serious it became, and how people just passed and gave their money away. I got a copy of this email. I decided to replicate it. This is the exact email that went out to people. This was the one that was doing the rounds. This is a genuine email that I've taken, and all I've done is replace the email address into the next part. So I decided to replicate and build this email. I haven't made any changes to it. All I did was remove normally it said dear and an email address. I just removed it and left dear. I did add a little sneaky bit to it as well, which was if they did click on the link, Old MacDonald had a fishfarm.com. And I wasn't trying to do this maliciously, so I didn't want them to pay any money. So I used an old Office 365 landing page, one that they stopped using a few years ago. Now, it would have pre-populated the email address of the clicker, so that would be in there. And we were just trying to see if they gave us their password there, and hit the sign in button. We can tell from this web page, it's old. If you did want to spot some mistakes of it, the link at the top is just the domain that we own, and it's not a real Office 365. So there are some errors you could spot with this page. The copyright at the bottom is a great one for future information. No company would ever have an old copyright on their pages. It'll always be up to date. So if you ever see something like 2017, it generally means it's not the right website you're visiting. So let's have a look at the results. So we sent it to 100 people from this. Now, 100% delivery. We were whitelisted. We were purposely trying to get through their servers. 10 people opened this email. 16 people clicked. And that's a scary stat in itself. That means 6 people at least did not open that email fully to read the entire email trail before they've clicked on that link. They've clicked on that link without actually opening that email properly. So that's a scary stat in itself there. And out of those 16 people who actually did click my link, 13 people gave me their password from that. And as you can probably imagine, this is a scary stat. So let's talk about just some other emails that we generally send out. We like to replicate emails that are coming into businesses quite often. So here was a common one that came in quite a lot last year or the year before. Not so relevant now in our day and age. Our smoking policy has changed our company. So a little bit of play on the words. This again is an email that I've actually sent out to good effect in the past. I want to see people open my attachment and download the payload within that. If they hovered their mouse over that link again, it would have said Old MacDonald had a fish farm too. It's confirmed by the bottom right. At the top there, 75%. I haven't just chosen an email which is just this is my best stats, because I can do better than that. This is just a popular email that always seems to work, and I just did this one in preparation for a presentation maybe last year before. So let's have a look at the results. 36 people clicked and 24 people opened my attachment. Now, on that email, it's a good one, because all the smokers click straight away. They want to know what's changing within the business, and then we have all the non-smokers who begrudge the smokers that 10-minute extra break per day. They click too. They want to see what's happening, what the rules are from that. Because it's about smoking, and we would have presumed that smokers would have clicked on that the most. If we look at the bottom of this screen, we have that you can't see the exact stats. It's hidden in the middle there because it is live data. I had to hide something. You can see most of the clicks are in day one, but you can see 2-3 days later, 9 people still clicked. You can still see 3, 4, 5 days later, 4 people clicked, and even a day later, somebody clicked on this. But consider it as email that went out to everybody at exactly the same time. Somebody should have been putting their hand up. We told them immediately, as soon as they clicked on that link, this was a phishing attack, and people were still failing a week later. You would have thought they've been talking about it outside while smoking, to be honest. So 24 attachment. One person even was really desperate to get through this. They did click on that multiple times. I looked in the background. They even went onto the web page and then obviously entered their details too, which shouldn't have made no logical sense, but that's what happened. So as we can see, some high results from quite a simplistic email there. Now times are changing a little bit. This is our historical office environment. You know, are we going to go back to this, or is there going to be a new normal? Will it be? People don't think it'll be this close for a long time. But an email comes in. We can all take a look at that email. What's on the screen? Somebody could be showing something quite funny here, and everyone's taking a look. But somebody can, within a business environment, can put their hands up and say, stand up and say, nobody clicked that email that's just come in. It's a phishing link, or a phishing email, sorry. Or you can just show people, can you have a look at this? I'm unsure on that. And at the moment, we're at home. We're working in our own environments, a homely environment. It then generally makes us a little bit more comfortable, and we are trying to multitask. We have kids at home, maybe not necessarily young kids. We could have teenagers. They obviously need just as much in between their 3-hour computer sessions. And we're trying to multitask a whole host of things at the same time, and working maybe not even in a proper desk environment. So in this particular example, we've got a young child there who's actually the person clicking the link or clicking and opening an email from that. But it just shows how busy you are. You could have easily just turned around and clicked on that link. And we've got nobody to ask. There's nobody around. We can just quickly say, don't. No one said don't click on the email. There's no one to say, can you just have a look at this quickly? And we're in haste, we're in speed. He's obviously trying to do 3 or 4 things at the same time here. And that is a general why people generally fail anyway, even in their office desk. Haste and speed are the general reason for failure. Let's have a look at what's in your inbox as well. So we take a look at, we saw earlier that I managed to get 13 username and passwords. And generally, if I was to attack an organization, I would wait till 1 o'clock in the morning. I would reset the password around that time. What that does is it stops notifications going through to iPhones. You may check, if you were checking your emails earlier at 8, 9 o'clock at night, which is quite likely, you may see that you've stopped getting emails, or you tried to send an email and you were instantly alerted. So wait till most people are in bed and then reset the password. I've got their current password, reset the password, that's complete. Now I've got access to the inbox. Maybe I download that to whichever laptop or device, mobile device I'm using at the time, but it will populate all of the emails in there. So what's in your emails? Loads of company data. You've probably got purchase orders. You've probably got some form of banking details, maybe. Depends on your exact job role. Generally, most of us are using cloud-based, SaaS-based applications from that. Most likely your username is your email address, and to reset the password generally doesn't need an administrator to do it. Depends, maybe some high-end ones do, but we have a lot of SaaS products now within our business. So let me change the password, let me reset that link, get a link, reset that password. If you've been in a business long enough, it does stand to reason you get quite a few of your personal email addresses come through. So maybe you might get some of your banking emails, or just your very catalog, or anything, and I can just reset that password, and that will just send a link. I'll click on it, change password, away I go from that. You most likely have non-disclosure agreements with either your suppliers or your customers, and you have a whole host of data within this. So there's a couple of things we could do here. We could be not very nice to this company, and we could take everything in that inbox and we could just dump it online and make it freely available to everybody, and it would show profits, losses. I'm sure there's data within here which is sitting in people's inbox, even if it's a download from their CRM. Hopefully we've also gained access to their CRM on top of that, and we can obviously take that data as well. I know we've got a whole customer list, maybe their entire purchase history, accounting history, balance history. There's a whole host of information we could gather from that very, very simple email address. If they're an administrator, I can go a little bit further as well within the business, hopefully, and negotiate my way around what folders, what files have I got access to too, with those login credentials into Office 365 or Google Hangouts, etc. So it's not just small companies, it's not just medium-sized companies, it's even it's the biggest in the business here. Google, Facebook even fall and pay out a lot of money for these scams, and it costs them lots of money. Medium-sized businesses, as per the middle attachment there, and small companies, even hairdressers, are hit quite often because they generally don't have the high-end security that a big company does. But they do have a lot of data. They have entire customer lists with accounting, etc. So they are quite heavily hit. And just Google it around hairdressers. I think it was in Scotland as well. They were hit very heavily a few years ago for their data and the ransomware attacks. So we have also a lot of passwords to remember. So you've got your own personal passwords. It's possible again earlier. It stands to reason that your password is the same for one application as it is for the other. It stands to reason that your personal passwords generally mix with the same as your business passwords. We're asking employees to remember too many passwords. There's too many portals now from that. So let's go back to Joe. So you can see some of the dangers Joe faces on his daily busy work life and that. So unfortunately, this is not an option we can't just replace. I say unfortunately, fortunately we can't just replace our users and click OK and everything will be okay. So let's take a look at KnowBe4 here, and we want to reduce that. You've seen some emails that I've sent out. They're simple ones. When we do a first line phishing test with a business, it's generally a simple email like that. We can get harder. We can make the impossible email. It's very easy to see who's publishing a job on Facebook, on LinkedIn, for example, and sending our CV. It's an attachment that somebody has to open from that. So you're not expecting that email breaks some of the rules, but we don't do that. We try to be really nice and send some base emails. We want to see what an employee's level of understanding is. We're not trying to trick them. So the average failure rate from those very basic, very simple emails is 27%. And after a period of training that employee and continually phishing that employee, we have an average stat of 2.7, and that's taken from 6 million users worldwide from that. So how do we get down to that 2%? We can put a bubble around Joe and let's try and protect Joe a little bit better from that. So first of all, we go for this. If any of you want a KnowBe4 demonstration, feel free to ask the team here. We can go for that and show you much more in detail KnowBe4 and its training structures and its phishing templates. But to look at the actual training itself, so we can produce a planned training scheme for our employees, and it depends on where they sit in their business as well. Training might be different for different people and different age groups within your business. So I mean, mandatory training could look like GDPR. That's something you want everyone to do. But does Joe know your full policies? What is your policy if you lose a password? Do they know what to do? What do they do if they suspect they've been hacked? Maybe it's not. Maybe they haven't got a blue screen demanding ransomware. Maybe they've got people sniffing their data. They think, oh, did I visit that website? Do they know your internal policies and procedures? So that's something we should look at and train employees so they know what to do. Now, some training videos on here. We've got Safe Travel for Road Warriors, not maybe necessarily because we're not traveling at the moment, but it's actually very good for just looking at Wi-Fi and your routers that you're connecting to in general. So we're working from home. We have a different. We're not protected by our corporate hubs anymore. We have our teenage kids, or possibly husbands, clicking links, watching YouTubes, doing this, that, and the other. And somebody could quite easily take control of that router. And if you're not secured via a VPN on your connected cloud application, maybe they're actually sniffing your data as well. AJ will go into a lot more detail on that afterwards, though. But we can start creating this training concept, and let's have some fun. Let's play some gamification, depending on the age group as well. We do have a Netflix generation. There's some great TV series that could be published, and just click, and that people will just naturally binge watch them. They're just like The Office without Ricky Gervais, but a little bit funnier too. So we create that training to Joe to improve Joe's understanding. Let's continually test Joe as well. Let's send emails every month or every quarter there. If we're going to send an email, we're not trying to trick them again. We're trying to show where they went wrong. So show them the failure, and you can send real emails. I think a very effective strategy is to take real emails you're seeing get through your firewall or mailbox, real emails that are coming in, replicate them, make them safe, so it's your own internal links, and send those emails out and see what the damage could have been within your business, and then show your employees what they should have spotted. Where were the mistakes in that? Earlier I showed you about copyright. It's quite a common one from that, but let's hover their mouse over the links and we're showing them where they went wrong within that organization, on the email, sorry. Training is also, we don't just have training which is just predefined. We could predefine obviously different job roles, so accounts are going to get some detailed information about how to spot whaling attacks, and whaling attacks is when an FD sends an email, can you pay this account, or anything looks quite legit. So we train that, and sales team or road warriors have a different training altogether. But if they let's train people when they fail as well. So when they fail those campaigns, we have if it's their first failure in 6 months, to get a 5-minute video. If it's their second failure in 6 minutes, maybe we might up that intensity of that training a little bit. And we're not just talking about videos here. There's nothing worse than a video, pressing it, pausing it, and put it to the bottom of your screen and carry on working. These are interactive. They have to stop. They have to ask questions. They do pause to move on chapter to chapter. Questions are needed to be asked. If it's their third failure in 6 months, we might be able to take a little bit more seriousness and give them an hour or two long one as punishment for that. So, taken from that, that is our general rule, how to get from 27% down to 2%. So we do have some free tools. You can speak to the team here. We can do a free phishing attack for your organisation, and to get a base stat within how we would have fared. We can look at creating a phishing template together. We can also, or maybe even send out a webinar invite and see who we can get to join our fake webinar, and have a little bit of fun with it as well. We've also got some free password tools as well to test how strong your passwords are within your business, and if they're being used multiple times, and it will run against Active Directory from that. So just ask the team. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was a great presentation. It really does make you think about some of the risks that we're facing in this kind of new normal hybrid working that we see, and we've been in for a number of months, I suppose. Clearly, security awareness training for employees is really important, along with that kind of continued phishing simulations that would be carried out to ensure that employees, up to date with the latest threats and knows not to click on things. That kind of human firewall almost. So if you don't have security awareness training, then you should definitely be speaking to us about that. And like Chris said, we can get a demo organized, and you can do some demo phishing in your environment. So thanks very much. I'm going to remind everyone, if you have any questions on any of these things, please just publish them on the Q&A. We do already have one question already, which is great. Thanks, Fraser, for that. We're going to answer that towards the end of the webinar. So let's continue on. Let's talk a little bit about employee collaboration. So right now, more than ever, sharing of data and everything that we really do, sharing amongst employees, is really important for any business. And being in the office or at home really should not stifle that teamwork, right? We want to try and keep our employees motivated and accelerating and delivering on our business objectives. So many customers are using cloud services to provide access to email and data. So AJ, let's how do firms secure access to these services?
Yeah, I know, absolutely good point. So thanks, Gordon. With so much reliance on cloud services in the new normal, we really do need to secure these services. So there's many providers in the market. It's always a good idea to use a reputable provider for your cloud services, such as Microsoft or Google. The benefits of cloud services such as email or storage is that they allow access from anywhere, which is a clear catalyst for remote productivity, but it can also be a security concern if they're not configured correctly. Thankfully, there are some basic steps which can be done to ensure cloud accounts are as secure as possible. First up is use a suitably complex password, or better, yes, a phrase we're hearing more of, a passphrase, which can be thought of as a small sentence, which are easier to remember. They include spaces. So most people don't know that most services support spaces in a password. Just write a small sentence. It's easier to remember and more secure. Touching on Fraser's question here, obviously we'll give an answer to that at the end, but consider the use of a password manager to assist users with password generation, ensure unique passwords for different services, which is obviously preventative of some of the stuff that Chris was talking about there, to make sure those passwords are different. Unique credentials for different services will help in the event of phish credentials or a data breach. Setting up multi-factor authentication for all accounts which support it. This will prevent cyber criminals being able to log in without your phone.
Yeah, securing the accounts makes a lot of sense as businesses adopt more and more cloud services. So great tips there to help keep your accounts secure. As we see more cloud accounts and hybrid workers, I mean, where do you see this space going in 2021 and beyond?
So moving forward, we're starting to see businesses adopt what's called conditional access models. These are at the heart of the new identity-driven control plane. These consider conditions such as user, group, location, device, and application. These conditions can then be considered to enforce controls such as requiring multi-factor authentication for users, blocking or granting access from specific locations such as a home office, ensuring that the device is business issued and not a personal device. Ultimately, these are used to make decisions such as block or grant access. So some examples of this, right? A conditional access policy that allows access only if the user has a valid username, password, multi-factor authentication token, and is logging in from a trusted device and location such as their home office. These types of conditional access policies prevent many of the common attacks we see, such as business email compromise based on phish credentials. The threat landscape is always evolving, and businesses must adapt and keep pace to ensure strong cybersecurity posture. Conditional access is the future, as it doesn't put more boundaries in front of the user who just wants to be productive wherever they are.
Yeah, these types of access mechanisms make a lot more sense as those network boundaries get blurred, employees accessing different services from multiple devices and different locations. So yeah, completely get that. So I mean, what about businesses with less cloud adoption and more hybrid or perhaps even businesses that are just purely on-premise resources?
Yep, absolutely. So it's true today that many businesses still have some element of on-premise infrastructure. This could be something as simple as a file server or some application that requires access to the on-premise business network. For these type of situations, I'd recommend two potential solutions. A virtual private network, commonly known as a VPN. A VPN encrypts network traffic between the remote employee and the business network. There are many different types of VPN, and it is important to ensure that you are using a modern, secure tunnel. These allow workers to securely access on-premise resources by dialing into the office via the VPN. However, it's not recommended to allow employees to use this type of service on a personal or a shared device, as it places the device on the corporate network. And this could introduce a vector by which malware could spread from a personal computer to the corporate network through the VPN. So it's best to seek professionals who can plan an appropriate remote connection method for your specific scenario. There really isn't any, there's no one size fits all. The second method of remote access is screen sharing technology. This will allow a home user to use any device to connect into a workstation at the office. Securing this type of service with multi-factor authentication creates a secure way to access on-premise resources. The source device does not directly connect to the network, so this can be an option for personal and shared computers.
Yeah, it seems like every situation is different. It's important to have the right solution for your circumstances. It's well known within the IT world, I suppose, that personal devices, home computers, etc., with VPN access are a big no-no. So thanks for sharing that today. That's going to be really helpful to a lot of people. I'd like to move on to something which has gathered a lot of interest in the mainstream media recently, which is video conferencing. I know we've talked a little bit about that already, but with the pandemic, businesses have adopted video conference solutions kind of overnight almost, with these virtual meetings becoming kind of a new normal for a lot of people. What concerns do you have around these solutions, and what can businesses do to ensure they continue to remain safe, AJ?
Yeah, so it's a question we get asked all the time, pretty much, as that conferencing service has been adopted so quickly. No one even knew what Zoom bombing was 12 months ago, and now such events have hit mainstream media outlets such as the BBC. Now, while some of these attacks may be more disruptive in nature, businesses need to be able to collaborate internally and communicate with their clients securely. With virtual meetings set to stay, here's a few tips to securely implement video conferencing services. Default settings should be configured in such a way to balance user needs with security. Consider implementing single sign-on, commonly referred to as SSO. This means that the service will inherit the same identity protections as your other services. It will significantly improve the user experience by reducing the number of times that authentication is required. This makes it easy to use and secure, a win-win. If no SSO is available, you should ensure the accounts are secured by a passphrase and multi-factor authentication.
So the idea here is really to leverage existing identity protections that the users have got to log on to those services, but whilst retaining that high levels of security. That's great. I suppose the only thing there is that only covers access into the service. So some of these virtual meetings are highly confidential.
Absolutely, Gordon. And this is the primary concern many users have when using this type of service. We frequently hear of unauthorized users logging into live meetings. I think Chris highlighted that very, very well. And obviously, when they log in, they're causing disruption. However, disruption can be minor when compared to a hacker breaking in and stealing confidential information.
So what can be done to secure the actual meetings themselves then? The last thing any business wants is to be in the news with a breach like that.
Yeah, exactly right. So here's some pointers. You need to be able to control who can join or initiate meetings. This is very important, as obviously meetings can contain confidential information, as we've discussed. The aim here is to protect the confidentiality of the discussions and also the availability of the service. So here's some points to consider when actually hosting a virtual meeting. When setting up the meeting, ensure to generate a specific link which can be sent to the attendees only. Calendar invites makes this secure and easy. Use a lobby to ensure that anyone that joins must be approved entry by a moderator. This is critical to prevent unauthorized users joining. Again, the aim is to stay off BBC News. If you're using a platform such as Zoom, always ensure the meeting is protected by a password. It's simple, but effective.
Yeah. I mean, part of the power of these platforms like Microsoft Teams is that they go beyond basic video conferencing and allow true collaboration. They often have those extra features like file sharing, which is great for hybrid working, but also kind of introduces more security risks. Any tips around that?
Yeah, that's right. So platforms such as Teams go beyond conferencing services, and they include extra features such as file and screen sharing, instant messenger chat, and even remote control of a participant's device. So when using conferencing services, be sure to decide what features are appropriate for your context and consider changing default features if they're not used. Another feature which can be used in video conferencing is the recording, both for video, audio, and even for chats and files to be saved. Be sure to disable these features if not required. And if you're using recording services, be sure to know where the data is stored.
Okay, thanks, AJ. Now that we've discussed that human element in securing cloud services, we need to think about the actual hardware devices that remote users are using and to access services. So this is going to be more critical than ever when users are remote and not protected by office firewalls. So when hybrid working is in full swing, devices may be in the office some of the time and at home some of the time. in this model, what can be done to ensure that devices continue to remain secure?
So historically, it has been much easier to control devices when they are within the office perimeter. It's easier to apply security controls to that type of device and scenario. However, with newer technologies, this is changing, and securing corporate devices wherever they are can be achieved. Device management is a complex topic, and we will be hosting a future webinar to deep dive into this, so keep an eye out for that. However, here are 5 tips which will help. We're going to discuss updates, authentication, encryption, antivirus, and good old backups. First up, the simple concept of updates. For all issued devices, ensure you have a robust patch management system in place to keep all user devices patched against the latest threats. Many large-scale cybersecurity incidents would have been prevented by the simple act of ensuring devices and software were updated. Right, let's talk about authentication, which is extremely important. All corporate devices should require authentication to access. This might be a username, a password, a PIN code, or biometric. This will help protect the device if it's lost or stolen, which will be more likely as the devices move around more in the new normal. An often overlooked topic is encryption. This may be more relevant than ever in the new normal as devices travel to and from the office under hybrid working conditions. Any devices which hold corporate data should be encrypted. This will protect the data if the device is stolen or lost. Now, something every device should have is antivirus. It's been around forever, but it's changing. Ensure all corporate devices are protected by a modern antivirus with frequent updates so that devices can remain secure wherever they are. Most next-generation antivirus solutions update several times a day, leveraging vast threat intelligence databases. So look out for an antivirus solution that goes beyond basic signature detection and will keep the device secure from newer threats. And let's not forget about backups. If something manages to slip past your defenses, you need a process in place for restoring your data. So have a comprehensive backup strategy to ensure that any data stored locally on a device can be quickly recovered. This is useful if a device is lost, stolen, or even damaged.
That's great tips there, AJ. It's quite a lot of individual elements to consider, and it's great that we can share these tips to help businesses secure their devices. But there has to be a way for companies to enforce these rules.
Yeah, absolutely, and there is. It's all about compliance strategies using solutions such as mobile device management. So mobile device management, or MDM, as kind of known in the acronym world of IT, can help protect organizational data by actually requiring devices to meet certain requirements. These are usually implemented via compliance policies. Compliance policies define the rules and settings that users and devices must meet to be compliant. These are then combined with conditional access policies, which can block users and devices that don't meet the rules. So how about some examples of this? An example of this would be actually requiring antivirus on a device or access is blocked, or ensuring a mobile device is secured via a PIN or biometric to gain access to business systems. Compliance policies and mobile device management are a great way to ensure only devices which meet the required criteria can access business systems. They become an enforcement mechanism of all the points we have discussed for securing employee devices. It doesn't matter where the employee device is located, we can actually enforce the security requirements on it, which is great for hybrid working.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, AJ, for that overview. It seems there are many things to consider when it comes to securing devices to allow a hybrid workforce to continue to operate securely. So how do businesses go about implementing all these criteria?
So it all comes down to policies. From a device policy to mobile device management, you need to ensure that all employees know how the device should be used and use compliance policies to enforce security. When done correctly, scaling should not be an issue and security should not get in the way of productivity. This will lead to a secure, agile device estate for businesses wherever their employees and devices are located.
Great stuff. Hopefully our attendees are learning something today which will help them stay secure. Now that we have discussed security awareness training, cloud security, and the securing of end user devices, what about the home networks themselves? I mean, most home network users will be using consumer grade routers with, BT, Sky, with default settings generally on those routers. So do we have any tips for these workers that are working at home?
Yeah, so this is another great question. It comes up often and for a very good reason, right? Your router is perhaps the most important device in your home. It checks all incoming and outgoing traffic, acting as a sentry to make sure nothing dangerous comes in. It controls access to your Wi-Fi network, and through that, all your phones, tablets, laptops, and more. If someone else gains access to that network, whether that's a remote hacker or your nosy next door neighbor, it can be quick work to compromise those devices. As you said, Gordon, home users are probably sitting behind BT Home Hubs or Sky routers, the most common kind of deployment in the UK, and they're usually left on the default settings, right? They unbox it, they plug it in, it's working, done. However, leaving it in this condition can introduce some security concerns. So to further secure the home environment, I'd recommend the following. First up is change the passwords. It's a good idea to change the Wi-Fi password on a regular basis. Use a modern security standard such as WPA2 and not weaker older standards like WEP. We'd also recommend changing the router admin password. Keep the firmware up to date. Your router runs low-level software called firmware, which controls everything the router does. Some modern routers update themselves in the background, but whatever model you have, it's always worth making sure the firmware is up to date. Now, this means that you've got the latest bug fixes and security patches and are protected against newer exploits. Disable remote access, UPnP and WPS. A lot of routers come with features designed to make remote access easier. Unless you need admin level access to your router remotely, you can usually just safely turn these features off. Another feature to look out for is universal plug and play. This is designed to make it easier for devices like smart TVs to access the web. UPnP can also be used by malware to gain access to your router security settings. So again, turn this off if not required. And lastly, if possible, use a guest network. A guest Wi-Fi network is essentially a separate network. Now, normally it's set up for guests, as the name suggests. Running a separate, isolated network for work may help to isolate work and home devices. This separation will give work devices an extra layer of security when at home.
Yeah, thanks, AJ. I know what I'll be doing when I head home tonight. I got a couple of those services on my router that I probably need to turn off now. It's good that hybrid workers can enhance their home network security with some basic changes. Everything we've discussed today will help to secure businesses from that ever-present threat of a cyber attack in the new normal. Even though many of the tips provided today are simple to implement, many businesses struggle to tie this all together. So what can be done to assist them to create that coherent strategy?
So this really is the challenges that many businesses face, right? To increase a firm's cybersecurity posture, there are many pieces of the puzzle to bring together, especially with hybrid workers. Security needs to be baked in and not bolted on. The first thing I would recommend is to create policies to map out and clarify their stance on the various elements we've discussed today. By creating a specific set of policies, employers and employees will reduce ambiguity and will be singing from the same hymn sheet, which is especially important when workers are out of the office, working at home, distracted, etc., etc. The next part is to bring cybersecurity skills in-house or work with a trusted partner in the field. Getting expert advice is critical to making sure your cybersecurity strategy makes sense and is applicable to modern threats. This holds true when the workforce is at the office, but even more so as the new normal of the distributed workforce takes hold. So, to summarize, securing the new normal will require a proactive approach such that businesses do everything they can to secure their systems. But it will also need to be reactive, as businesses will have to react to the changing threat landscape as new vulnerabilities and attacks are found every single day. So build your security into the culture, the people, processes, and technology, and it will become seamless and effective. All of these factors together will help businesses stay secure moving forward.
Thanks, AJ. There's a lot of information there that all the attendees will need to unpack. Hopefully, everyone has learned something today that they can use to be more secure. I want to now move into our Q&A. So it looks like we've only got one question. So, any other attendees there that have got questions, then get typing, stick them up there, and then we'll get them answered for you. I think we've got another nearly 10 minutes, so probably be able to finish up early if we don't get any other questions. But we do have one question that's been published today by Fraser. He's asking, how safe are password management apps like Keeper Dashlane, etc. So I know that we know quite a lot of information on this stuff, AJ. So I'm going to ask you to answer that question, because I know that we've got a product that or a solution that meets this criteria. So AJ, can you answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a question that does come up quite frequently. The answer is it's weighing up the pros and cons. So when you're using something like a password management app, Keeper, Dashlane, LastPass Enterprise, something more old school like KeePass, for example, effectively you're gaining the benefits of being able to generate secure passwords. You can usually have passwords that are longer, more complex. The entropy, right? It's harder to crack a password that's really, really long. So a password management system allows you to generate unique passwords, which will prevent you from being the victim of a phishing attack or something completely out with your control, such as a data breach. If you use a password for an insurance company and their password database gets breached, that's not your fault. But if you're reusing that password elsewhere, then suddenly that's a problem. So by using unique passwords, the password management systems make it easier to ensure that you are using unique passwords. It also makes it easier to generate passwords, which is something that we get a lot of feedback from workers, users, is that it's very difficult to come up with passwords that are meeting requirements these days of 12 characters long, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, all that stuff makes that much easier. So where possible, my honest recommendation, I do use a password management system myself. We use one in the business. I use one personally as well. The pros and cons, the pros outweigh the cons. The cons of it, obviously, is you need one single password or some kind of authentication mechanism to get access to the password manager, right? So if someone got a hold of that master password that unlocks, your password manager, effectively they would have access to that entire, database of all of your accounts. I think last I checked, I had something about 110 individual accounts in my password manager. So if someone gained access to that, that's obviously not a good day. However, if you're further securing access to the password manager with something like multi-factor authentication, assuming you're using a very complex passphrase and assuming you're using multi-factor authentication, then realistically, that's as secure as any individual account. So under that scenario, I would always recommend a password manager is actually used. We're also seeing some other features being baked into these systems these days, like the system we use, for example, not only stores your password securely, it's also checking breach lists against the dark web. So if, for example, you've got a credential in the password manager that has then been found for sale on the dark web, it alerts you to that pretty much in real time as soon as that information is available. So you're getting that kind of proactive sort of alert that says this is a breach credential, allowing you to obviously then go in and change it before someone logs into that account. Obviously, if you weren't using a password manager that had this kind of facility, you wouldn't really be able to get that information. So hopefully that explains it. That they are a bit of a complex topic. Obviously happy to have a one-to-one with anyone that wants to learn more about password management systems, apps, etc. like that. But yeah, the reality is that the pros do probably outweigh the cons, but it's important that people that use this type of service really do have all of the information in front of them so that they can make an informed decision on whether that's right for them and their business.
Yeah. I know that for us with password management, I mean, it was quite obvious for me, many accounts on the internet with, using my email address, and typically in the past I used the same password across multiple sites. I don't do that anymore, but that's what I used to do in the past. And all it takes is one of those sites to get hacked. They get your password, and of course they're going to try it on different websites to try and log into other different services. So for me, it's about having different passwords for different systems, unless single sign-on is enabled, obviously, but you have different passwords for different systems. Don't keep them in a spreadsheet, because that's going to get hacked and get copied, and then they'll have everything. At least in that, as AJ said, at least in a password manager, it's in a system which is encrypted. You must have that master password to sign in. But as AJ said, you also must have that multi-factor authentication turned on. Because if someone does guess your master password, then at least they're still not going to be able to get in unless they've also got your device, your mobile phone or whatever that's your multi-factor device. So yeah, that's that's my take on that as well. But one more question that's came in here is, if you have more than one antivirus program on your laptop, can they work against each other? I think that's a really good question. I mean, there's some. I think I'd like to try and answer that. Maybe AJ, you can jump on at the end. But I have seen machines in the past where, you know, the users installed Symantec antivirus and they've maybe installed something else on top, and they've got two of them that are trying to protect the machines. My view on that is that you've got one too many. You know, if you've got the right antivirus product installed on a machine, you're giving yourself the best performance of the machine, so that both, you know, both products aren't conflicting with one another. So get the right product installed with the right technology. You know, we talked earlier on about next generation antivirus, intrusion prevention, big thing. You know, coming out in the future, we're looking at antivirus products that's going to be using artificial intelligence, which we won't get into today because it's a super complex topic. But you know, antivirus products with AI built in, intrusion prevention built in, real-time monitoring, that type of thing. That is going to be the future of AV, the way that we see it right now. So I wouldn't recommend having more than one antivirus product installed. Just get a good one that's in there. Don't know if you want to add anything to that, AJ.
No, pretty much that echoes my thoughts as well. Just on some of the more technicals of that. So antivirus kind of works in two ways. The traditional antivirus uses what's called signature detection. Most malware is then hashed to a signature, and most of the major players, Symantec, you know, Bitdefender, Norton, SentinelOne, etc. The signature-based element of it is normally shared, right? So they're going to know if they're detecting on signature, most of the products should capture that. So there's no real need to run two. If you're running two, you're just going to introduce the overhead of, you know, more demand on the system. It may slow it down because of the resource overhead of running two. Looking to the future, as Gordon alluded to there, with kind of the AI kind of advanced persistent stuff that we're seeing now in the antivirus scene, they're looking at things like PowerShell-based attacks, macro-based attacks, things that are not just quite as simple as a virus on your computer that can be detected by its signature. So no real reason to have two. It's not likely, to be honest, to make you any more secure, although I can see why people would think that. It really is about making sure that you've got an industry-leading product that's, you know, updated all the time, is looking at beyond just basic signature detection. Again, happy to have a one-to-one with anyone that wants to discuss this topic further, but it really is about having that one product that you're comfortable with, is peer reviewed, and there are a number in the market that are, you know, the top five. Anyone in the top five roughly are going to be giving you about the same level of protection. The differences start to come in with things like management and all that kind of stuff. So pick a good one, make sure you're happy with it, and you'll be absolutely fine there.
Okay, great. Thanks, AJ. Appreciate your comments there. Well, that now ends our webinar. I mean, all that's left for me to say is thank you, AJ from IT Hot Desk, and also Chris from Nuvius. It's been great chatting to you both today. Finally, of course, thanks to our attendees. If you're interested in having a further one-to-one chat with us, then feel free to reach out, fill in a form on our website, or contact us on the email provided on the slide. Or just pick up the phone and give us a call. We're always here to help. We shall also send you out an email with a link to the recording of this webinar, which you can replay at your convenience. Encourage you all to hit our website, have a look, see we've got a great section there on cybersecurity and security awareness training, and that'll you know, keep you even more informed. Thanks all, and have a wonderful day. Thanks.